Hey, I'm Timothy Roberts, and in this video we're going to talk about profile shapes. And then I'm going to show you how the change in the shape of a cymbal drastically affects its sound. Alright, so these are two cymbals that are basically just hammered enough to be flat and sort of cymbal shaped and then edged. So this is part of my process is basically getting a blank. I do enough hammering to flatten it out and to start building it into a typical cymbal shape. Then I edge it to get it to the diameter that I want. And then from there, it goes on to the next round of hammering, which is really where I build the shape I want out of the cymbal. I played these cymbals for you because this is a great representation on the extreme end of what a very low profile sounds like. It has tons of really low, growly wash to it. Because these are unlathed, they're going to be sort of dry, but relatively these have a good amount of spread for the fact that they're blanks and they've been just basic hammered. This one right here is a 20 inch and it has a hand formed bell and it weighs 1980 grams. This is a 24 inch that has a pressed bell and it's 3,300 grams or around there. So these are both already starting out pretty thin, and because of that, I'm not going to be doing a ton of lathing to these to get them to their final weight. So really the crafting of these cymbals is going to come in how I hammer them and the shape that I achieve. And so I want to show you that process and demonstrate the difference in the sound from when they're like this, being super flat and low, and when they're actually shaped. You'll see the pitch goes up like I've talked about in other videos, and there is a weird kind of middle ground where I've said in the past that a low shape has more wash and spread, and the more umbrella shaped, the tighter it gets. But there is a threshold. Like right now, this is so low and flat that it doesn't have enough tension put into it or stiffness put into it. It doesn't have enough hammering to really tension it up to a place where it will have a sustaining sound. I talk about guitar strings. If you have a guitar string with no tension on it, it is not going to make a sound. You're just going to hear the attack of you trying to pluck it, but it will not sustain. Cymbal alloy can operate sort of in a similar manner, or I like to at least use that metaphor. When a cymbal blank is untensioned, unhammered, it doesn't have enough of that tension put in for it to sustain, not unlike a guitar string. So right now, I hear a very, very low, growly, fundamental pitch that's ringing out, and then I hear the attack of the stick. And so what I want to do is I want to bring that low, growly pitch up to where it's more apparent, and then we're going to start to deal with that ratio between the stick and the wash, and then obviously we're going to deal with the lathing that I do and really getting it finalized. But let's take one more listen to this, and then we'll go over to the anvil, and I'll show you the process of me hammering this into a taller shape. And then after it rests for 4 or 5 days, we'll come back, and I'll play them again, and you'll see just how different they are. Alright, let's head over to the anvil. Alright, so I've flipped the 24-inch blank inside out. I did a little blue chalk mark, and I'm just hammering in circles, connected circles, and I'm starting at the base of the bell and then just expanding outwards towards the edge. You'll notice here in a second that the cymbal itself starts to taco in on itself, and this is what happens when you're hammering quite a bit. What it wants to do is it wants to bend around that surface where you're hammering. So as I get near the edge, you'll really start to notice the bend, and what I'll do after that is I'll flip the cymbal back the right way, turn the cymbal over, and start working the underside. I like working on a flipped surface, either the underside as is or a flipped top, and it's just a little bit easier to navigate with the hammer. And so as I get to the edge here, you can see really starting to bend and morph, and then when I flip it right side out, it's going to have a lot of top tension, which is going to make it pretty stiff on the top surface, which is what I want for this cymbal. I want to have it be fairly stiff so that it can have a nice stick clarity, and I don't want it too loose and floppy. So now I'm on the underside and using my heavy Turkish hammer, excuse me. And you'll notice I do a lot less hammering on the bottom because I really want to, the scales are really tipped towards the top hammering on this cymbal. So now a little bit more on the bottom before I flip it inside out and go back to hammering the top. All right, so another line. Now I'm using this really small flat face hammer, and this is a good hammer to get really dense hammer strikes that aren't as extreme. And now I switch pretty quickly back to the heavy Turkish hammer, and I'm just doing these really heavy strikes. This is a way to just get the metal to move fast with fewer strikes, so I'll use more force, and I'm using kind of a spokes method instead of the connected circles method. And then back to the bottom, I think for the last time, just to get it strengthened just under the bell and out near the edge. So on this 20-inch, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I am going to move a lot faster. So you'll notice that I am doing quite a bit of back and forth, top and bottom. I'm switching hammers a ton. I started out by doing that big Turkish hammer to get some big heavy strikes on the top when it was flipped. And then I flip it inside out, go to the underside, and I'm using my really heavy but really flat-faced hammer to give some structural support on the underside. And then I'm just back and forth. But it's going a little bit too fast for me to run a play-by-play, so I'm just going to move on. All right, they've rested for about 5 days, maybe 6 days, and the profile raising has happened. These both need a little bit more fine tuning. I've got some hums and notes going on, but for the most part, they're in a taller shape, so we're now going to be able to hear what that profile raising is doing to the sound of the cymbal. The pitch is a lot different. The stick feels a lot different. Stick definition is sitting out on top. There's not a mushy sound, but there's also not a mushy feel. It has a nice clear stick. There's none of those weird tones that go on with really flat profile cymbals. So at this point, what I'm going to do is take these things to the lathe. I'll do a little bit of weight removal and dialing in of the taper, and then I'll probably go back and do some hammering to fine tune the cymbal and make sure there's no weird tones, and then they'll be finished. So for now though, we're just gonna focus on what the profile raising does to the sound, and you can really take the sound of these two versions of these blanks, and you can think about cymbals in that way when you're looking at trying to purchase one. If one has that kind of low growly mushy kind of feel, it might be a really low profile cymbal, which isn't the most versatile sound. There are some brands that make some really flat cymbals. They're on the cheaper side. Just know that those cymbals have major drawbacks. When you pull them up into more of an umbrella shape, you get a more versatile sound where the stick is going to sit on top, and they're going to be really functional, and to overgeneralize, they're going to be strong voiced cymbals. So drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about this change, and subscribe and hit the bell if you want notifications, and keep an eye out for the next video. I'm Timothy Roberts. Thanks for watching.